Hey, you guys, and welcome back. So, I wanted to take the time to do an explanation concerning the hashtag that I've been using in some of my more recent videos. And the hashtag is BWPivot. And the BW stands for Black Women, not Black Woman. And that's going to be an important distinction. It stands for Black Women Pivot. And so before we get into the explanation, I want to give you a definition of the word pivot. Now, the word pivot can be used either as a noun or as a verb. And so in the sense of a noun, it's the central point, pin, or shaft on which a mechanism turns or oscillates. And so in the sense of a verb, it means to turn on or as if on a pivot. And so here lately, I've been seeing the word pivot being used in certain instances. And in those instances, at least a couple of times, I've seen it being used surrounding some sort of drama that one Black woman is having with another, or one Black woman is having with several Black women who are coming to their pages or channel or etc. So I wanted to go ahead and put this explanation out for what I mean when I say BW pivot, so that, my intention or the intention behind me using the word and attaching it to Black women doesn't get convoluted in all of the noise. Have you ever, as a Black woman, sat back and watched these other groups be able to come together and discuss the issues and then put out a plan for how those issues are going to be addressed and work together with cohesion in order to start chipping away at getting those issues resolved? And then look at Black women as a group and wonder why that's not happening for us, even though we as a group are a force to be reckoned with. The reason why that is because other groups embody and personify the definition of the word pivot, both in the sense of the noun and in the sense of the verb. When you look at all of these groups, their main objective, their main cause, their main group, they are the pivot. They are the central point. And whatever comes into their gravitational pull is going to have to revolve around that. It's going to have to pivot around that group and the objectives of that one group. The issue comes in with Black women is we want to be Captain Save Everybody. And so you have Black women, what they do instead of becoming the pivot, they scatter. You got sisters over here joining on to this group, sisters over here joining onto that group. And once they join onto that group and get swept up in the gravitational pull of that particular group, then they become the warrior and they take on the objectives and the goals and the game plan of that particular group. And so when you have Black women who are associated with these opposing groups, when they come together, they begin to war with one another, because they have not become the pivot. They are not pivoting around their own well-being, their own objectives. They're pivoting around the objectives of some other group that doesn't have any sort of recognition of the needs of Black women, of the issues that Black women and girls face. They're pivoting around some other group who are like, well, we not really concerned about the issues that are impacting just specifically Black women. But if you all want to come over here and fight with us and fight for us for our objectives and our goals and our game plan and to resolve the things that are going on in our group, then you can come on in and do that. Come on in and sit down and shut up. We don't want to hear nothing about Black women. We don't want to hear nothing about Black girls. We don't want to hear anything about that. You can come in and join on to us and help us fight for us. And this includes Black men. For all the pro-Black sisters who think that it was just white men who were sexually violating Black women and Black girls during slavery time and segregation and Jim Crow, it wasn't. It was Black men as well. And when Black women would take Black men to court for having sexually violated them, the white male judges would dismiss it. So you have many instances where Black men and white men were working in cahoots against Black women. You had Black men sexually assaulting Black women and Black girls. You had white men sexually assaulting Black women and Black girls. You had white women orchestrating the sexual assault of Black women and Black girls. And not only that, but when the time came for Black males or Black men to speak up and say, hey, they're doing this to us and they're doing that to our women, they didn't speak up when it came to talking about the sexual assaults and the disrespect of Black women and Black girls and Black children. That's why Malcolm X said what he said about the Black woman being the most disrespected and least protected person in this country. So you have black women who are constantly at odds with one another because they're trying to fit into everyone else's spaces, and everyone else is carving out spaces for themselves. And so in doing that, what that's going to wind up doing is that's going to leave black women as being the workforce and the mule and the worker bee for everybody else and everything else other than themselves. You are giving away everything that you have to groups who are never going to turn around and say, well, hey, well, what about black women? Well, what's going on with y'all? What do you need? What are your issues? They're never going to do that. Because just like it was up to them to carve out that space and make space for their group and what's going on with them and to work towards resolving their issues, it's the job and the duty of black women to do the same thing for themselves. That's why the Bible speaks about knowledge and it speaks about wisdom. People get the two confused. Knowledge is not the same thing as wisdom. Knowledge is pretty much what you know. Wisdom is how you apply it. You have a lot of black women who are full of knowledge. They're the most educated. But when it comes to wisdom, we aren't applying that knowledge that we've gained, the skills that we've gained, in a wise way that would benefit us. It benefits everybody else. It benefits all the groups and the organizations and the political parties that we're trying to attach ourselves to and work for and benefit. It benefits them. And then we sit back and whine and complain and boo-hoo about how black women don't have this and black women aren't protected and nobody cares about black women. Well, that's because black women have to first care about themselves. When you see somebody mistreating, abusing, misusing another black woman, you should take that personally. Because if they are doing that to her because she's a black woman, they feel like she's, doesn't have any protection and she doesn't have any other choice but to take this abuse. If they'll do it to her, they'll do it to you. And so that's how other groups work. When they see this going down with another member of their group, they step in and they take it personally. That's how they prevent things from getting to them. They stop it when they see it happening to another member of their group. They don't scatter and do all of this other stuff for people outside of their group and then don't leave anything for fighting for their own group, for their own self. They don't do that. Their charity starts at home and then goes out abroad. And we're doing it backwards. We're doing it backwards. We giving to everybody else, and then we look around and see that we don't have nothing. See, we don't have what we need, and we suffering, and nobody's caring. As a matter of fact, to the contrary, everybody tries to silence black women when they start to speak about the issues that are going on with them, the hurts, the pain. Everybody stands around and tries to silence us. And that's because you haven't made yourself a priority. You are scattered. You are not the central focus. And that makes us as a collective weak and vulnerable to predators. And it's not wise for us as a group to see this going on and continue down this same path. There needs to be a pivot in our mindsets as a group. Many of the cases where I see black women fighting and arguing and going at each other's throat is because they've joined themselves to some other movement, to some other group. And then one of them said something about their group that they're in and they don't like it. And then everything explodes. When if black women were focused on making black women the pivot, they would be looking at these other groups and organizations as an addendum or an accessory to whatever it is that they got going on. They would cause those other organizations and those other groups to pivot around the central focus of the well-being and the benefit of black women as a group. And if they don't do that, then they don't get first dibs on our time, on our effort, on our skills, on our resources, on our knowledge. They don't get first dibs on that. If you only have a little bit of time, a little bit of effort, a little bit of money, it should go towards the central focus of working towards the benefit and resolving the issues that impact black women and girls. And if you have anything left over and you want to do something for some other group, then fine. But before you even do that, you should be inquiring and looking into, does this group do anything to benefit the well-being or go towards resolving the issues that black women face? If they don't do that, then I would advise against you putting any of your efforts towards them. But I understand that people have certain things that they're passionate about. But when you take an interest in yourself, then other people will take an interest in you also. When you make yourself a priority and you stop giving everything that's good, all of your resources to people who are not benefiting you, to people who are in fact harming you, when you stop doing that, then people will have more respect for you. And when I say groups, I mean, I'm talking about like Democrat, Republican, feminism, manosphere, BLM, Proud Boys, just any and everything that black women are attaching themselves to that has absolutely no benefit to the collective of black women. When you have so many people within a group who are like, I'm going to do this because it benefits me individually as a black woman. It really doesn't benefit you as a black woman. It benefits you as a person, but there's no benefit to you as a black woman. It benefits you as an individual. And when you have enough people within a group who do that, it makes all of the individuals within that group weaker, because all of these other groups understand that there's strength in collectivity, in joining together, and having work and effort and strategies and plans and game plans revolve around that central group. There's strength in that. There's insulation in that. And I'm hoping that black women are going to begin to have this shift as a whole, because tough times are coming. And when you look at these different groups who are having their governments fall apart and, all this chaos break out, the last thing you want to do is be an individual woman in a sea of people who think that you're expendable, who think that you are other than them, who think, oh, well, they need something from me, so what are they willing to give up? That's the last place that you want to be when the what hits the fan. So I would advise black women, with the current state that we're in, being so weakened as a group because we're so gung-ho about joining these other fights and these other efforts and these other agendas, is to stop allowing all of these outside forces to continually tear you and rip you away from other black women. We need to start vibrating closer together, because you may have that man right now, but the truth of the matter is you really don't find out whether or not someone is really in your corner until all hell is breaking loose. You really don't find out how people really feel about you until you're going through hell. And men are human just like everybody else. Men get sick, men get disabled, they die, they leave, they jump up and decide that they want to become a woman. And so it would be a good thing. It would behoove us, with all of the skills and the knowledge and the resources that we have as a group, to make a more concerted effort to vibrate closer together instead of allowing these outside forces to continually rip us apart. It would be nice that when everything goes crazy, to have people around you who are like, okay, girl, all this stuff's going on. You got to make it. I got to make it. Let's work together and we make it together. For all these sisters who are only here talking about they on a femininity journey, what if what hits the fan before you finish your journey? What if it hits the fan before you find that man that's supposed to take you in and sweep you up and has all this money and go on trips? What happens if everything falls apart before then? You putting all your eggs in the femininity basket. But now when I look on my TV and I see these white women out here, doing all this stuff and calling the police and chasing folks down, none of these women look particularly feminine to me. They look extremely aggressive. But I guarantee you that if she is out, so that same woman, even if they just saw her showing her show enough behind all over national TV, if she is out somewhere and some man or somebody attacks her, they're going to come to her defense. And a part of that is because both she and the people coming to her defense care about themselves as a group, have self-love, have self-respect. And so when you see those things going on, it's more than just putting on a pretty dress and putting on some lipstick and doing your hair and looking cute all the time. They have a certain particular mindset that just is above and beyond just, looking a certain way or never disagreeing with somebody or never getting into an argument. You can say what you want to say, but I've been around white people. I've lived around white people. And these white women are not walking around like no doggone dainty Disney princesses. They just aren't. I saw where some people were discussing an incident where a black woman got jumped by some people at a riot or something like that. I don't know if it was the Capitol building riot or if it was somewhere else, but she got attacked by a whole group of white folks. And there were two black guys standing in the crowd. And they were looking off into the sunset, looking all in the sky, trying to act like they didn't see what was going on. And they were standing there, didn't come to her defense. Well, they're on their femininity journey too. They're trying to blend in. They didn't want to jump in and have all those white people realize that they were black. They were trying to blend into the crowd. But what you see with groups like BLM is that now if they had done that to a black man, the people probably would have been arrested. You know, those people probably would have been arrested and charged, because when you see these cases with police brutality when it comes to black men, these officers or whoever are getting charged. They're getting arrested and charged. Now, that's not so much the case when it comes to black women. Because black women put all their efforts behind BLM and behind the riots for when things would happen to black men. And now they're getting justice and you just getting left out in the cold. It don't matter what group it is. When you join forces, when you scatter away from yourself and join a hold of other people's causes, you are continually and perpetually and forever, you will be left out in the cold. You know, you hear a lot from black women talking about, well, all of my friends are male. I don't deal with no women. Okay. How's that working out for you? Even with all the education, I'm seeing black women who are educated, they have businesses, they making good money, and they are being killed. And all of these different groups that black women are joining on to and rallying behind ain't saying a mumbling word, ain't saying a peep, ain't said boo. So just like when I tell black women, hey, when you see this other black woman being disrespected, mistreated, you need to take that personally. The flip side of that is when you don't do that, when you ignore it, and you have that on both sides, especially when you talk about the pro-black who are for black women being with black men, or you talking about the pro-interracial dating side, talking about black women being with non-black men. When you ignore the abuse, the misuse, the disrespect, the brutalization of other black women, when it's your turn or the turn of some black women who you do love, they're going to ignore you too. That's the standard that you set. When you ignore it when it comes to another black woman, when it's your turn, they're going to ignore you too. I talked about this before when there was this big, huge battle between the pro-black women and the pro-interracial dating black women on YouTube. When something would happen to a black woman at the hands of a black man, the pro-black women wouldn't say boo, wouldn't say nothing, wouldn't acknowledge it. The same was true when something would happen to a black woman at the hands of a non-black man. The pro-interracial dating black women wouldn't say nothing, wouldn't acknowledge it. And I'm thinking to myself, how on earth are these women sitting up here being a part of a group that when another black woman gets brutalized, whether or not her life is going to be acknowledged is going to come down to which color penis she was seeing at the time? How on earth is anybody in their right mind thinking that that is any kind of sisterhood? Regardless of who is doing the brutalization, if somebody is brutalizing me, I want people to acknowledge it just because I matter to them. My life shouldn't matter to you depending on who did it. If I'm your sister, it should matter because I'm your sister. And it should be upsetting to you that anyone would do harm to your sister. So you guys, usually I don't ask people to share my videos. I'm like, if you want to share it, share it. If you don't, then don't. Mostly I just ask you to like the video if you enjoyed the content. But I'm going to ask you to share this video with your fellow black women, because I'm hoping it's going to give black women in general something to think about and something to ponder. But other than that, I'm going to go ahead and end this video. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe. I will be so happy to have you. You guys have a great day, and I will see you on the next video. Thanks.